Week 50, Living in the Presence of God. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 25, we read of a king. This is capitalized, for the reference is to God, who welcomes certain devotees to the divine consciousness, saying, I was an hungered, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and ye visited me. I was in prison, and ye came unto me. The elect asked him when it was that they had served him in these ways, and the king answered, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as ye have done it unto one of the least of my brethren, ye have done it unto me. To see God as residing in every human being, as indeed he does, is to open oneself to limitless opportunities for serving him. Paramhansa Yogananda, in Autobiography of a Yogi, described a saint who lived in this consciousness as the greatest man of humility I ever knew. He described a seemingly chance encounter with this saint. Another day found me walking along near Rhode railway station. I stood for a moment by a temple, silently criticizing a small group of men with drum and cymbals who were violently reciting a chant. How undevotionally they used the Lord's divine name in mechanical repetition, I reflected. My gaze was astonished by the rapid approach of Master Mahasaya. Sir, how come you're here? The saint, ignoring my question, answered my thought. Isn't it true, little sir, that the beloved's name sounds sweet from all lips, ignorant and wise? He passed his arm around me affectionately. I found myself carried on his magic carpet to the merciful presence. If you would see God, watch for him everywhere. If you would hear his voice, listen for it in all sounds and also in their supporting silences. If you would know God, seek his wisdom behind merely human knowledge. The Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter states, one who beholds my presence everywhere, and all things dwelling equally in me, he never loses loving sight of me, nor I of him through all eternity. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
We'll continue with another beautiful reading, this one from Whispers from Eternity. This reading is A Million Salutations at Thy Petalled Feet, O Lotus of Light. A million salutations at Thy petalled feet, O Lotus of Light. I pour out my heart's love before thee. I pour out my whole being. I offer all the fragrant musk of my soul at thy feet of omnipresence. O precious, blessed one, pipe the song of thy bliss in the dark bower of my heart. I am thy very own. Ever shall I be thy own. I will laugh at all dangers, for thy protecting love fills the golden chalice of my constant remembrance of thee. I cast every earthly passion and pleasure into thy sacrificial fire as an oblation of my devotion to thee. In thy blessed light, I will illuminate all shadows and expose all illusionary my imaginary fears. In thy radiant light, I will remain awake forever, entranced by thy thrilling, omnipresent bliss smile through all eternity. May thy love shine forever on the sanctuary of my devotion, and may I be able to awaken thy love in all hearts. O make my soul thy temple, make my heart thine altar, and make my love thy home. So I think we can leave it there. What else could we say to add to that? So our topic today is living in the presence of God. In our everyday busy lives, it is easy to forget our purpose on this earth. This week's topic invites us to cultivate that divine presence in our lives, to have a moment-to-moment experience, not a sometimes when I remember experience, but a moment-to-moment experience with that living presence. How did the great masters and saints achieve this? They all went through great difficulties and adversity, yet you would never know, because all they did was exude this calm peace and loving kindness wherever they went. They never spoke about their tragedies, their pains, their situations. On the contrary, they lived in a state of lightness and ease and were ever serviceful to others, ever available. Having a purpose in life and aligning everything one does with that purpose makes your whole life flow with greater clarity and efficiency. And there's no greater purpose in life than seeking God and having a relationship, an ongoing relationship with that living presence. For it is the only thing that will satisfy the longing of the soul to return to its state of ultimate freedom in God. Anything else doesn't cut it. And we've all felt that at some point. You know, you've gone for all the tickles and the laughs and the good times, but it leaves you flat after a little bit, right? After the ecstasy, it drops. And we're again, is this it? Is this it? And we need more. We need much more. How do we make this state of living in the presence of God a living reality in our lives? Not a concept, not a nice idea, not something we hear at Sunday service or when we open a book when we're inspired. A constant reality, a living reality in our lives. Yogananda used to tell his disciples to always live in the self, to be secluded in the self, to come down from time to time to talk and speak a little bit, but seclude yourself. It doesn't mean that they were away in seclusion in their own rooms, but they were secluded even among other people. You can interact, but you can be in seclusion. You don't throw yourself into the activity of the moment. He asked that they be in silence. He imparted his teachings in silence. He said that silence is the altar of spirit, and the language of God. We can explore this silence by spending some time in silence. You can seclude perhaps for a day, take some verbal silence, maybe half a day, perhaps a few minutes, pull away from your daily tasks and get quiet. Let go of all the activities that draw your attention out and go within. This silence is a fruitful, dynamic, rich, radiant experience of the divine presence. It's not flat, it's not passive, it's not empty. It's vibrant. We quiet down enough to tune in and nourish ourselves in this deep connection with the divine. During times of seclusion, whether it be days, whether it be hours, whether it be minutes, practice listening. Deep, active listening. Not just listening with your ears to the sounds around you, but listening with every particle of your being. This is how we come to the divine silence. This is where we meet that presence. We need to engage in an active communication with the divine presence. Living in the presence requires that we put out more energy, more attention, more dedication, more commitment to establishing this ongoing relationship with presence. Those moments of verbal silence and active listening lead to a quieting of the mind, but most importantly, it leads to a quieting of the heart. And true silence is the silence of the heart. This is a heart that is steeped in the divine presence. Yogananda said that fear cannot enter a quiet heart. It remains undisturbed. It remains in that state of plenitude, so there's no space for fear. In order to host the divine presence, we must let go of anything that we're carrying in our hearts. And that means we need to make peace with our pain, with our past, with our own self. The quiet heart carries no baggage. So nothing interferes with your being at rest in God. What is holding us back from experiencing this divine presence? In most cases, it's the small stuff. You think, oh no, it was a big things that happened. No, it's the small stuff. It's those tiny, daily irritations, anxieties, frustrations, offenses, and fill in the blank that keep eating away at the peace of the heart. They really engage our energy, don't they? That shouldn't have happened. I shouldn't have been spoken in that way. That person wasn't right. And we go on and on and on. But what do we lose? There's a lot at stake to be lost if we allow ourselves to get drained and let that take us down the old rabbit hole. There is an experiment about a monkey that puts its hand in a jar to grab food. And once it grabs the food, it makes a fist with its hand, and it cannot bring its hand out of the neck of the jar. And no matter how much it tries to push and push its hand, get its hand through the neck of the jar, it will not get its hand out, but it will not let go of the food. It will not release the food. Even though it sees its captors coming closer and closer, it will not release the food. And I think this is a nice anecdote that we can relate to. What are we holding on to? And we just can't put it down. Put it down for a little bit, but pick it up again. Put it down another little time, and back up it comes again, chewing it around, wandering those feelings in the heart with whatever that issue is. And the net of Maya drops over us, And there we are, entangled by our own lack of letting go. You let go and you move on. We are free. We pretend we're not free. Oh no, I couldn't because this happened and that happened. Let it go. You are free. We have the power, we have the freedom to move on. Being in the presence of the Guru was an ongoing lesson for the disciples. When Master Yogananda took his disciples out, sometimes he'd take them out to the desert retreat to write books, to do dictations and interpretations of the sacred books. On one occasion, he was doing an interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita, and he'd have a few disciples sitting around, the person typing and other people taking note. And on one occasion, for example, he'd just go into a very, very deep state, go into a reverie. Silence would just drop over the room. And those who were in tune just followed him into that silence and tapped into that deep state of consciousness he found himself in, and shared it, of course, with his disciples. At other times, he encouraged lightness and laughter. He told jokes. That was something difficult for Swami Kriyananda, who was very intellectual, and he always thought that, no, spirituality is heavy, it's deep, it's serious, it carries a mantle of being ever rooted and grounded and in a certain way that did not allow other ways of being to be. But Master cleared him of that. He healed him of that. He did a lot of things to work on Swami's intellectual mind, and Swami was able to let go. And as he let go, he grew. He grew and he transformed himself. So when it comes to being in the relationship with the divine, there is space for it all. It's not only the heavy and the deep. It's not only the laughter or the lightness. It's both, and it's everything in between. We tend to compartmentalize. This is my sadhana. Here I'm being spiritual. Over here is my work. Over here is my relationship. But that's not the case. Everything you do exudes the quality of your spirituality. Everything you do, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you work, the way you deal with your neighbor, the way you meditate, exudes who you are inside. There is no chopping it up. That is living in the presence all the time. Your whole life is your spiritual life. There's nothing that would not be included in that. There is a teacher, this is another story of Yogananda's, who talked about a teacher in India who used to travel around from town to town with his group of disciples in order to teach them lessons. So on this one occasion, they were going to walk quite a distance to the next town, so he told his students to eat a good meal of fruit and to eat plenty of fruit before they started their journey on foot. But the disciples saw they were eating fruit, as the master had indicated, but the master was eating meat. The others just ate their fruit, and once that meal was finished, off they went. They started on foot. And after a couple of hours, this one particular disciple was a little disgruntled. Look at the teacher marching ahead of us full of energy. He's got all that meat in his body, and we've digested our fruit a long time ago. We're tired, so the master, obviously being a master, picked up on that. So when they came to the first town, they came to a blacksmith's home. And the master told this disgruntled student, "Can you digest anything? Can you digest anything I eat?" And the student had seen right next to the blacksmith's home a pit of fire and meat roasting on it. So he thought, oh yes, I can digest anything you eat, master. So the master went to the blacksmith's put his hand in the fire, took out a few nails that was still molten from, being in the fire, and ate them. And told the student, "Come on, would you like to have some? You can digest this too." And the student was shocked. Obviously, he was not going to be able to digest that. So the master said, "For me, everything is spirit. When you realize that everything in the world is an emanation of the divine, then you can digest anything in your stomach and in your psyche. But until that time comes, you're limited." Meditation is the first step in practicing and experiencing the presence of God. We meditate. In meditation, we relax enough sufficiently to begin to loosen the bonds of our identity and begin to expand into our true nature. This is where the relationship with the divine begins. This is where the heart begins to open to the chant of being, to being in the presence of the divine 24/7, wholeheartedly. No great master takes this state for granted. Being in that presence requires ongoing, active participation on our part. We're not just passive bystanders, a little prayer from time to time, and then I'm going to get what I really want. No, active participation from moment to moment to moment. In the beginning, it might feel like a one-sided conversation. Nothing's coming back. But God is listening. The divine is listening. Listening not only to your prayer, but how you interact with the world around you. Your response to people who dislike you. Your response to people who love you. Your response to difficult situations. That's what the divine is watching. When young Yogananda came to visit Master Mahashaya, also known as the blissful devotee, what did the blissful devotee tell young Mukunda when he arrived to visit him? "Little sir, please be seated. I am talking to my divine mother." A master that had devoted his life to meditations, 24 hours round the clock, years and years and years. "I'm talking to my divine mother." This is how we bring that presence to us. We engage. We keep knocking on that door, and that door will open. Bring that presence with you wherever you go, and share it with friends, with strangers, with foes, and with enemies. You share that divine presence. There is a story I will finish with about a king who was surveying his territories. He was riding his horse, and he was looking around at his vast territories when he comes upon a beggar. And he stops by the beggar, and he says, "What do you need?" The beggar looked at the king and he said, "What do you think I need? You're the king. You can assess my situation." So the king looked at the man, his emaciated form. He looked at his barely there clothes in tatters. So he takes the man and gives him a piece of land with a little dwelling on it. He gives him nice clothes. He gives him some cows and barn animals so he can feed himself. If the beggar had said, "I want food," that's all he got. How do we come to interact with the divine? I want this to happen. I don't want that to unfold. Give me this. We want little specifics. Open yourself up. Offer yourself into the flow of divine grace. Grace is there for you to fulfill all your needs. But you have to let go of that small dream, of your small plan. It doesn't fit the size of your soul. And I will end with the reading that we heard from the Bhagavad Gita today. One who beholds my presence everywhere, and all things dwelling equally in me, he never loses sight of me, nor I of him, through all eternity.